My boyfriend took his shirt off in front of me for the first time. My boyfriend and I have been together for 8 months and he has been hesitant to take his shirt off around me. He was molested by one of his uncles from the age of 9 until he was 13 years old and the trauma he has is still there. He never took his shirt off as a kid and gets really uncomfortable when people touch him. He didn't let me hug him or hold his hand the first month we were together, and the first time he asked for a hug I nearly cried. He is the most handsome man in the world and has the biggest heart imaginable. I'm happy to be his girlfriend. He is really into fitness and goes to the gym almost every day. He started working out when he was 15 as a way for him to take back control of his body and he really enjoys it. He struggles with anxiety and considers me and the gym his safe spaces. He has really nice body and works hard to maintain his physique. Last night he came to my apartment and was complaining about being sore. We were laying on my bed watching TV and he kept moving around and trying to get comfortable. He fell down some stairs 2 months ago and sprained his AC joint, and yesterday was the first time he has been able to work out that shoulder. He was really uncomfortable, so I asked him if I could rub and massage it for him. He shut the idea down, but I assured him that he was safe with me and I would not do anything to him he didn't want. He was still unsure but said he wanted to take a step with me. I offered to take my shirt off with him and after a minute of reassurance he agreed. We took off our shirts and he looked so beautiful. He moved up in front of me and I began rubbing his shoulders. He flinched at first but relaxed and said it was helping. He asked me not to touch his lower back, so I stayed around his shoulders and neck. I massaged his shoulders for about a half hour and told him all the things I love about him and he was so calm and relaxed. He spent the night, and when I woke up this morning he was in between my arms. We didn't go to sleep like that, so he must have moved next to me in the middle of the night. I started rubbing his back and he woke up and moved closer. It was our first time sharing a moment of intimacy and it was so beautiful. He left an hour later and sent me a text thanking me for treating him with love and respect. I did it. He trusts me with his body. I will love and respect him for as long as I live. Other than shouting back, what's the best thing to do if your boss screams at you about something you did wrong? Not my boss, but a true story. A few years ago I was in a pizza shop waiting to pick up my takeaway pizza. A store manager at the counter publicly tore verbal strips off a young trainee who had apparently made an error in her work. I was appalled at the way he humiliated the poor little thing in front of onlookers. At the time one of my children had begun part-time work during the school holidays to earn some money and this young lady only looked about her age. I'm a teacher in maternal, and while all the other customers looked uncomfortable but weren't going to say anything, I decided to let fly. I mean, what could he do to me? I wasn't his employee. I stepped up to the counter and took on the manager. I told him that what she had done was totally understandable given her age and level of experience. I then said that how he handled it was not, and that I was going to report him to the company for foul language and abuse of a minor. I had his name from his badge and I had the receipt showing time and date of my purchase and that he really needed to go to counseling and get help. He turned on me, screaming abuse and making a fuss, and actually came out from behind the counter to tower over me, attempting physical intimidation, seeing as yelling at me was not having the desired effect. I got out my mobile phone and recorded him, and another customer at the store called the police and reported him. I also made good on my threat, got in touch with the company with details and was assured that they would investigate the matter. I think the fact that the police had been involved swayed them. Anyway, long story short, about a year after the incident I returned to the shop. They did make good pizza, and the young trainee came up and thanked me for my help. The former manager had gone to counseling, but it then came out that he had been groping other female workers and they were emboldened by the fact that I had taken a stand and spoke up about him. He lost his job and I have no idea where he is now. Tonight I dug shit out of my own butt. Constipation, how bad can it be, right? I had no idea. Been smoking Zaza for 10 years and always been regular as clockwork. Wake up, have a morning joint and then a nice big poo. But I decided to change my life and quit, fell horribly ill for about a week and in that time. No poo. Not even a lil nug. Once I got better, still no poo. It's been 2 weeks since my last renvous with the porcelain throne, and I was getting nervous. Took some stool softeners, ate my weight in prunes and hoped for the best. And tonight it happened, the brown flood came knocking at the gates. But it was no flood, not at all. I felt like I was giving birth to a cannonball. Solid iron. Too big to pass through. I had to do something. I'd been pushing for an hour and in that time shed all my clothes. I was sweating like a pig. I felt behind me and my hole was wide open, trying so hard. I took the plunge. It was massive, solid. I poked at it and felt a little piece come loose from the monster. And then I lost all inhibition. For half an hour I was digging in there, breaking it up into smaller bits as much as I could, pulling them out by hand piece by piece. They were like rocks. There was blood, fresh and red, but I was too far gone. It had to be finished, it had to come out. All of it. It went so deep, I had no idea of all the angles in there, never dug that deep before. Still like iron. Then I broke off and pulled out a piece the size of a small toy car, and felt a change. A rumbling. My bowel telling me, yes. This is it, you've done it. I got the rest. I pushed my hands on the walls on either side of the bowl and it blasted out me like a hurricane, full force. 2 whole weeks of backed up shit, it was powerful, incredible, a feeling I had never known existed. And then I was empty and gross. I wiped my hand as best I could, dug out the shit from under my fingernails and washed them until they were raw. I am empty now. I am powerful. I beat the shit. And I can never tell anyone. So sorry, people of confessions, I will share with you. What facts about Japan do foreigners not believe until they come to Japan? Well, I have lived in Japan for almost 3 years and the below incidents were hard to believe when they occurred. We took a taxi very late at night after we missed the last train to reach our place. The total bill was about 20,000 yen, but taxi driver took only about 16,000 yen, saying that he took a wrong turn and it has caused 4,000 yen excess bill and he won't take that. My friend got his train pass made for 10,000 yen and lost it on the same day. It could have been used by anyone, but somebody returned it to railways personnel and we got it back the next day when we inquired about it. While coming back in taxi from market to our place, we didn't have exact change to pay to driver and driver also didn't have it. We asked him to stay for 5 minutes so that we could get it from somewhere. He felt so much guilt for causing us the inconvenience that he apologized to us and left without taking any money. On a Friday night we came back from office at around 11 p.m. and were looking for some beer. We asked to a person who was standing at counter of a Starbucks company cafe. He was so much eager to help us that he came with us for around 200 meters, leaving his counter to his colleague, and made sure that we find a beer shop. While traveling in train on a Saturday night, there was a co-passenger girl who was so much drunk that she puked in the train itself. The other co-passengers provided her the juice in a plastic bag, and despite being so drunk the girl cleaned everything and apologized to everyone. While in Tokyo Disneyland we asked a sweeper worker to take our snapshot photo. He kept his broom aside at some distance and took our snap. After we were done, some other group came and asked him to take their snap. We went ahead to see other attractions. After around 1 hour we came back to same point and saw a queue at that point for getting a snap done from that sweeper. The person was happily and enthusiastically taking everyone's snap. So much humility. I can go on and on. What was your Saul Goodman moment? There is a lot of history to this story which I won't go into here, but the short version is that for 5 years after we split, myself and the father of my children had been amicable. There had never been any issues with him seeing the children, and he had always paid child maintenance on time with no reminders necessary. I would be inclined to say it wasn't just amicable, we had managed to remain friends for the sake of the children. That was until last summer, July 2019, when he met someone new. She took an immediate dislike to me because she couldn't understand our friendship, and despite having 3 children of her own, appeared to take an immediate dislike to my children. 7 months later my son doesn't see his father anymore, and my daughter often asks to stay home with us rather than see him fortnightly like she used to. Well, girlfriend decided their dad was paying too much maintenance. After arguments we agreed he could reduce it from the £280 a month he was giving us to £50 a week. It then became a nightmare. I was having to remind him every week that he hadn't paid it yet, and he became more and more demanding, expecting me to drop my daughter off at the weekend and or pick her up. This was fine for the first 3 months until Christmas, when he told me she had advised him to apply through the child maintenance service because he would then only have to give me £40 a week. I told him I had worked it all out to be around £7 a week using their online calculator and said I was happy with £50 a week. They insisted regardless, angrily telling me I was lying. On Saturday the child maintenance service got in touch. From this week he has to give us £72.26 a week, and to make it even more satisfying, because he has gone through them, it is now legally binding, so he has no choice but to pay it in full on time, or they will automatically take it straight from his bank account and he will be charged a 20% fee on top every week. It now works out at £313 per month, so he is paying more than he was before he even met her. Rather than seeing me as the enemy and ruining his relationship with our children, they should have listened to me in the first place. Why did you call off your wedding? I called off my wedding 2 weeks before I was supposed to get married. It was 2006, I was 23 years old. My then fiancé and I were together for over 5.5 years, engaged for close to 3. We had planned a church wedding, country club reception, and over 100 friends and family were invited. All of the arrangements were made, the seating charts were done, and the deposits for everything from the flowers to the music to the catering were paid. And I called it all off. The extreme guilt and shame I felt for my actions lasted years. I felt like I lied to my friends, my family, his friends and family, and most of all, to myself and to him. I felt like a fraud. I hated myself for the pain I caused to my first true love. So what happened? Well, as previously mentioned, I was in my 20s. All of my girlfriends at the time were engaged or getting married. It was the thing to do. We all wanted the fairy tale, and at that age, most young ladies will stifle the little voice in your head telling you that maybe what you're doing is not such a great idea. Unfortunately, the thought of having a husband and the romantic fantasies that go along with happily ever after are too enchanting to make you take a minute to step back and do some soul searching. I don't know if it was cold feet. I don't know if it was wisdom beyond my years, although based on some of the other choices I made in my 20s, I'm inclined to doubt it. What I do know is that I asked myself a few questions, and I listened to my own answers. Do you love him? Yes. Does he love you? Yes. Is he a good person? Yes. Do you both deserve love and happiness? Yes. Will you be happy in 10 years? No. I hated that no. I didn't want to admit it to myself for a long time, which is likely why the engagement wasn't called off much sooner. But I couldn't deny it either, it was the truth. We had very different visions for the future. We just wanted different things. In the process I lost all of our mutual friends. I avoided going to family gatherings for fear of their judgment for being a failure. My best friend and former fiancé was now a stranger. I was the bad guy. Thankfully, this isn't a sad story. Over time, I learned to forgive myself. I learned my family never judged me. And I learned that my ex-fiancé, while devastated at the time, had also since done some of the same soul-searching I had done in 2006. We spoke on the phone a few years ago. I felt the mental anguish and guilt boiling over as I tried to say I'm sorry, but he wouldn't let me finish. He said I know. It's okay. He then went on to tell me about his son, someone he couldn't imagine his life without, and was fully aware wouldn't exist if we had ever gotten married. I told him about how happy I was living in Florida, a lifelong dream, And something that also wouldn't have ever happened if we had gotten married. We caught up on old friends, family, careers, etc. We learned from that conversation that we still love each other. We agreed that we were never meant to be. We realized that we both still cherish the time that we had together. And that we are both happy and feel fortunate that life took us in our separate directions. We also realized over the course of our conversation that literally every other friend we could think of that got married before the age of 25 was also now divorced. So as it turns out, he's still a good person. And maybe I am too. We just made some poor decisions in our 20s. Thankfully, we both got our happily ever after. Just not how either of us would have thought.